All right, let's call the meeting to order at 5:31 PM. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Mike Steinel, Sue Springman.
Here.
Chris Zellner.
Here.
Kristen Runge.
Here.
Joe Zitzelsberger.
Here.
Brian Wallace.
Here.
All right, next item on the agenda, let's go straight to public comment.
We have one request from Paula Hogan, 2314 Freshford Drive in Waunakee.
All right, and Paul, if you don't mind taking the podium and press the light when it's green. We've got 3 minutes for public comment.
Okay, does this work?
It
I
does,
guess,
yes,
all right.
thank you.
I am concerned about the new Aldi. I have nothing against Aldi. I have nothing against shopping there or having it located where you're thinking of putting it. My concern is that this is going to be the second grocery store that was promised when I voted for a lot of people here for the village board. And you know, it's an okay store, but it's not a full-service grocery store. And I'm worried that by having Aldi, you will preclude getting some other, like a Metcalf's or a Hy-Vee or something that has a lot more things to offer consumers. That's the only thing I have to say.
All right, thank you. I
Thanks.
appreciate you taking the time to come down and make a comment. Do we have any other comments? Do we have anyone online?
I do not see anyone online.
All right. With that then, let's close public comment and go straight to our first business item. This is discuss and take action on a site plan application for Waunakee at 301 South Century Avenue. And this is for final action by the Plan Commission.
Great. So this is a request from Waunakee to install a 12 by 48 by 9-foot tall exterior freezer, which is immediately adjacent to what used to be Rocky Rococo, will now become Prem Meats. The freezer would be located in the former drive-through lane that Rocky Rococo used, but since there won't be a drive-through for this restaurant, they don't need that space anymore. And then a curb and landscaped area would be placed in front of the freezer to protect it from traffic. Let me pull it up here really quick. And while I'm pulling this up, we can get to questions.
All right. So with that, while you're pulling this up, we'll get to questions. Brian, did you have any questions?
The only question I have is, it talks about changes by strand, but I couldn't find those in the document here, unless I missed them.
There were only 2 minor comments that had to do with clarifying a couple of engineering points. So there was a measurement that was listed incorrectly, and another one was there was a low point that needs to be fixed.
Do you want to take us through the diagram, Lauren?
Okay, so this bottom left corner is the bulk of the Waunakee building. Next to it, this kind of L-shaped space is the existing structure, which is the lease space for restaurants. Used to be Rocky Rococo, is now going to be Prem Meats. And then this gray area to the side here is where that exterior freezer will be. And then there will just be a single door facing east on that freezer.
Okay. And so the door facing east is an exterior door?
Yes.
All right. And do you want to advance? Is there a picture of it?
Gotta get this out of the way. So you see it over here on the right side. This would be where the door would be on that front side. And then this landscaped area in front of it. And this is what it would look like looking east from the back of the building.
All right. All right. Do we have anyone here from Prems? All right. Is there anything you'd like to add to this? We'll have you step up to the podium. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm Marty with Premies. Hit the button. So this is kind of.
Oh, I think is it green?
Oh, now it is.
Okay.
Better?
Yeah.
So this proposed idea, we are a little bit flexible with placement of exterior doors on the cooler freezer. In all practicality, that would be our best or most desired location for it. But that would really be about it. It would be attached to the building and there would be entrances into the cooler and freezer from the interior of the current Rockies spot now.
All right. What other questions do we have? Joe?
Couple of different things on, I don't know what page this is. But there's a exterior freezer cooler example and it shows some bollards that are around it, to protect it from traffic and everything. Do you plan to do anything like that here?
Correct, yeah, on each corner, and then we'd probably, depending on spacing, put a couple on the length of that 48 feet,
Okay.
just to protect it a little bit from plows and traffic.
Okay. And then as far as the landscaping that you're talking about here, the example shows a couple of trees, but it says low plantings and bark mulch. Do you plan to do anything that's a little bit taller to?
Nothing that would block the visibility of anything, more shrubbery and just green space. There is a current green space there where it bumps into that drive-through, so we'd just be looking at kind of replacing that and redoing it for a little bit of runoff control.
Okay. That's it.
Chris?
I'm okay with the placement of it. The question I have is exterior wise, is there a way to match it to the building versus white?
The current exterior is white right now. That side is all steel white. The front of it changes more to, I would say, a stucco look in stone. The cooler and freezer itself isn't able to structurally hold brick or anything like that. But we are able to either paint that or make it blend in more with the front stucco rather than the white tin side.
Guess maybe where I was going was. Oh, sorry. Thank you. The red trim that's going around the rest of the building, can that be incorporated in any way? To make it so this
On the
doesn't,
top there.
yeah, so there's several on the front and then around the top as well, so I'm.
Yep. Yeah, we could definitely do a red trimming around it. Obviously, it's not going to be the same height as the rest of the building.
Correct.
But we could incorporate that into it. The only thing that I'm thinking of is that is a sloped roof where the rest is a flat roof. So we're gonna have the angles of the red, but it's definitely something that we could
I was just
incorporate
thinking the
into it.
top of it. That's really it, just one red ring right around the top.
Right on
All
top.
the way around.
Yep, absolutely.
Just trying to blend it a little bit better so it doesn't stick out
Stick out. Yep.
completely from the rest of the building.
Yeah, something like that would be fine where we could add that corner trims onto it.
That's it.
All right. Sue?
Yeah, I'd like aesthetically for it to look better because it kind of sticks out, and I wonder if you couldn't put a fence in front of it to hide the look of it, or else, I mean, I realize you can't put anything to the walls of that particular, is it metal, I assume?
Yeah, it'd be aluminum
But you
structure.
could
Yep.
do paint and maybe even more than a red stripe, which might at least make the front look better because it is facing a major street.
Right. Are you visualizing just a paint to match that kind of the stucco that's on the front of that or the stone?
I guess I'd leave that to someone more creative than I, but
Okay.
something that would look
Tie
more
that
like
in.
that. You know, I think that's brick and stucco. Is that
Mhm,
correct?
correct.
So I'm not exactly sure what or how to do it, but I'd rather just not have that white wall.
Okay.
Otherwise a fence, but if you want your door there, that creates a complication. I
Yes,
think.
and like I said, we're able to
Is that
maneuver
for
away from
customers or is that just for your
that.
delivery?
Just for delivery.
And
Yep.
do you have any mechanicals on the roof that are gonna stick up or?
Just the mechanicals that are showing there, and then there will be 2 other units added onto the top of there, similar to what's up there.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that
Yeah.
very well.
I can point it out here. Be this one here,
Oh,
and then there's these here that for the bowling alley.
those are gonna be on top of the
On top of the
white
freezer?
shed? I mean,
No,
the
not
white,
on top of the shed, it'll be on top of the building,
Okay.
oh, addition on top of the
Yep.
building. Okay, not on the,
not on the
Freezer.
top of the shed, no.
okay, okay.
Yeah, I'd have the same comment if there's a way, I'm sorry, Sue, did you have anything else?
No, that's my major concern.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a rather major thoroughfare. At some point, we're hoping to elevate the whole look of Century Avenue down the road. That's possibly what our comp plan folks will be
Sure.
here to talk about at some point in the future. But, you know, just kind of knowing that we're going to want to get ahead of that a little bit. If there's a way to blend it or use fencing, or instead of low landscaping, maybe there's some more lush landscaping you can use to just blend it in
okay,
a little bit and get it a more aesthetic pleasing. I will say I'm very excited. I drive out to Spring Green
okay.
to go to your store out there. So I'm very excited that you're going to be in town.
Oh,
The
good.
awnings look like they'll be great. Are they going to be pink?
No, not
Okay.
pink.
Phew,
They'll
all
match
right.
they'll match our current logos and designs, so.
That's a relief. So, excellent. All right.
One additional question here. You've got the door facing, I guess it'll be east. If that's for deliveries, would it make more sense to put it on the west end instead so that you don't have vehicles kind of blocking that space on the side?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about that box is split between a cooler and freezer.
Okay,
So we were trying to make it utilize the most room out of the cooler side of it, and that we don't have 2 or 3 doorways in there just to taking up the wall space. But like I said, we are able to reconfigure that if it is a big concern of having an exterior door there to put that on the west. That was just our most ideal, but we are definitely able to change that around.
how often are you likely to end up with deliveries?
Most likely probably 4 times a week, and right now our current deliveries are anywhere between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Okay,
So it's usually right away in the morning. I don't know what the schedule would be like here, but usually early mornings.
okay.
Other comments or questions? Okay. All right. Seeing none, then what, Lauren, do we ask for this to come back again next time? With more specific plans? What's your advice?
That's up to you. If you would like to see more specific landscaping plans, that would be up to you to bring it back. Otherwise, you could give instructions to staff to approve more screening, whether that be in the via a fence or additional landscaping. So it's kind of up to you whether you'd prefer them to come back, or if they could do it in less time than it would take them to come back to another meeting, you can allow staff to make that call.
What are your thoughts, plan commissioners?
I'm one to have a final plan, but I'm good with the plan the way it is. Maybe a little bit I mean, he already talked about the landscaping, it's low profile, no trees, which I'm good with. And I don't know that putting a fence around it, I think it's just gonna draw more attention to it than what it already is. So I'm good with the way it is.
Jill?
Is there a timing component here that delaying it till the next plan commission meeting? would cause a concern?
There isn't a huge, I mean, it would just get obviously pushed back, and then once we get closer to our fall time, we would just have to delay it just because of our processing schedules, but we're already much past what we were hoping to anyway, so I mean, if it's another month, it's another month. But yeah, we're flexible with it, so.
I'd prefer to see it come back.
Okay. Chris?
I'd just like to see what it would look like once we add some features to it.
Okay,
Really, what it comes down to, just a big white box on the side of the building.
yeah,
for me right now, which doesn't do a lot.
okay,
Sue?
I'd like to see it too. I'm sorry to have to delay it. I wish that we had some design expertise that we could refer people to earlier than later so that we could facilitate their approvals. And I hope we could do that at some point.
All right. Thanks, Sue.
all right, thank
All
you
right,
for your time.
We'll see you in June.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, discuss and take action on a certified survey map for lots 1 and 2 and outlot 1 of Kilkenny Farms West, and this is for final action by the village board.
So this is the commercial area of Kilkenny Farms West. These lots already exist in a pretty similar fashion, just adjusting a lot line a little bit to expand the regional detention basin.
All right. And with that, Jerry, did you guys want to say anything? All right, great. Sue?
I'm fine. I'm assuming someone's looked at it. Okay, I'm fine with it.
Chris?
Straightforward. I'm okay with it.
Joe?
Couple of quick questions. The first one, do we have a comparison at all, or even just a description of where the lines have changed? Is that,
But I'll be honest with you. You know, look at it as one commercial lot. It was split up just arbitrarily.
so it's just that kind of a move?
They came in and it's like, well, hey, we got.
Perfect. That's just fine then.
Brian?
No questions.
All right, I don't have any questions either. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the 3-lot CSM as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for being here. Yeah, next item up, discuss and take action on site plan request from Aldi on Lot 1 of Kilkenny Farms West, and this is for final action by the Joint Plan Commission.
Okay, so this is the south lot of what we were just looking at in that CSM for a site plan for Aldi grocery store to locate there with entrances off of South Holiday Drive in Yeski. You can see that coming out of the top there, a drive coming in off of Yeski. They meet all of the parking minimums. They've been through multiple rounds of engineering and design review. One of the outstanding questions related to this came from Tim Semin, who is our planning consultant, regarding mostly the architecture of the south facade as a gateway into the community. He wanted to make sure that Plan Commission had a discussion about the architecture there. But otherwise, they've met all of the staff comments that we have outstanding so far.
And all these, would you guys like to say anything, or we're just here to answer questions? Yeah. Please grab a space at the podium. And once the light is green, you're good to go.
So Tom Howell, Director of Real Estate for Aldi. Excited to be here tonight. We've been working for a very long period of time. Want to thank the Tierney's for taking the time to meet with me and go through our ideas and work with us. And then also for staff, Lauren and Todd and Tim. We've worked with them for a very long period of time, taking into consideration pre-development meeting feedback to make sure we bring something here tonight that complements the village of Waunakee. So I can answer any questions you have about the architectural features that we've incorporated, enhanced the building with. So I could talk about it. I can tell you a lot about Aldi and how great of a grocery store it is. But I can take questions first.
All right, so let's start with questions. Sue?
Well, I wonder if Lauren can, she just did it, so we can look at the, I don't actually have any questions at this time.
And we did create 3D renderings as well to assist with tonight. I don't know if you wanted to maybe show some of those as well.
It's hard to know what direction I'm looking at when I look at the renderings. What's
So
Q? Show me
So
where
right
Q is.
now, Q would be right here.
So the parking lot is along the highway.
Correct. Yes.
Was there thought given to flipping that?
Well, in regards to the land itself and having it be, it's not straight lines. And so for the size of the lot that we needed, 2.2 acres, we had to position our building in this way in order to fit. So.
So they were standing along Q.
So that-
Okay.
That's standing along Q. So this entrance would be the northeast corner of the building. And then this would be looking from Pleasant Valley Parkway.
And then I can speak on behalf of the south elevation and the amount of effort we've put into this. So prototypically for an Aldi grocery store on the south elevation, it would be just a masonry brick wall. And so we took that feedback originally and presented doing material breaks. And then we also took feedback in our next round and redesigned it once again. And we added more Nichi-Ha panel breaks in between the brick, as you can see. And that's just a cementitious siding that looks like cedar in regards to the color choice. We broke that up, and then we also went through another round of comments and taking into consideration more glazing. So we added more spandrel glass on the tower or the bump out features there of the Nichi-Ha panels. And then we also took consideration from staff in regards to the landscape buffer. And so we rerouted our roof drains, brought it back inside the building in order for us to be able to add more landscaping to provide that screening as it progresses and grows on that side of the elevation there. And then we went through another round of comments, took more feedback. We increased all of the Nichi-Ha bump ups as high as we could go without impacting the structure of the building. Also, we had other feedbacks and comments that are things that we couldn't do that weren't approved. So we went ahead and decided to add a water table around the entire building just to complement and meet the request from staff. But we went a little above and beyond on that item to incorporate around the entire building because we wanted to make sure that it was a four-sided building for the village. And the last request that we had here was basically a discussion about the bump out features on the building itself. I can kind of point to it, but the material break here between masonry to the Nichi-Ha panels is a 3-inch bump. So there is a bump out. It was asked about originally. We do have that designed. The staff request was to consider a 12 to 18-inch bump out. That's a significant request. So that is one item that I would like to hopefully have a discussion about to just maintain the 3-inch bump out. I know it was a recommendation. It is just a very high cost item to the building itself for us to alter that. It would have a significant impact because we'd have to do the bump out on the west elevation and east elevation as well, which would impact the site. We'd have to adjust the entire site plan as well. So that's one item I did want to have a discussion about to see if we could come to a compromise in regards to the other features that we've incorporated around the entire building and on this south elevation to avoid that possible item, because we do have a bump out feature for the material breaks around the entire building.
Thank you for the explanation. Looking at the landscaping, so it's flowers, grasses, flowers, and then 3 green. Are those trees or shrubs?
Those would be shrubs. In regards to that, our engineers here tonight, we have several utilities in this area. And Mark, we had to use shrubs to make sure that the root systems wouldn't impact the utilities in this area. And so we did incorporate, there is a tree to the left.
Yep.
Yeah.
To your left, if I can interject, so we have trees to the right of your picture and then trees to the left, which Tom was saying, we have natural gas, we got electric right there, we got telephone service, there's storm sewer, there's a whole bunch of stuff, so we're trying to, plan ahead and not disturb them.
Okay.
Just a quick note for those watching or on the recording, if you're not at the podium and the microphone, we're not going to pick that up. So feel free to jump up there. That'll help.
All right. So with that, questions?
I actually think it looks pretty good.
Chris?
How many total stores does Aldi have? Roughly.
We've been growing so much. We just had our national meeting. I believe we're over 2,500 stores now nationally. And we're opening a significant amount as we speak throughout the months to go ahead. So we are continuously growing, and we're growing in Wisconsin too and other parts of the country.
Perfect. And then how often are you located next to another grocery store?
Pretty darn often. It's one of those items that the citizen here brought up, but we do not carry every product, and we know that. But we carry a very large majority of the everyday products that you do need at Aldi to satisfy your grocery needs. So for us to be within proximity of other retailers, it makes sense for us to be within that retail synergy because we do complement each other. Whether you go to Metcalf's to get your specialty ham for that Thanksgiving dinner that maybe Aldi doesn't carry, but we have a pretty darn good ham too. But there's just certain preferences or local products that we might not carry, like Prim Meats. There's just certain specialties, especially in Wisconsin, that's what makes it really unique.
And this might be a hard question, but are you usually first or second if there's another grocer there?
I could speak about myself. and Aldi, but usually we would be the second grocer to come in. The village of Waunakee is a unique, the demographics of the village of Waunakee is something that we, as a grocery retailer, you don't have a big box retailer like the Costco's, the Walmarts, and I don't believe you would have that, correct? So that is a unique situation with the village of Waunakee that Aldi, the village is great for us to pursue. It does check a lot of the items that we need to pursue a new market, but it doesn't have that big box grocer. And so we're excited for the opportunity. We feel like the village is very excited for the opportunity for us to come. And I know that other grocers potentially, could be coming down the road, but there's no information on that.
And last, is it typical for you to modify your store looks like this that you're doing? Or are they pretty generally the same thing?
We
Just
have a
different than you
Yeah,
normally
we
would
have a prototype, a typical prototype design. So the tower features that you saw with the first 3D images of our new slanted tower feature, that is our prototype. That's our new standard design. So in regards to the architectural enhancements and changes that we have made, the village has its unique building code requirements in regards to complementing other retail buildings and architectural features in the area. And every municipality has different code items that we have to meet in order to satisfy those requirements. So yeah, I would say that we have done a pretty darn good job meeting with staff, talking to everybody, just to make sure that we can understand how to come to the meeting tonight and make sure that we didn't have a surprise and that we worked with your guys' team and they were great. They answered all calls, all emails, are very timely. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Joe?
Staying on with the other locations and that sort of thing. Aside from this, the closest other locations, I'm assuming, are probably Sun Prairie, and I think there's one around Mineral Point Road, give or take.
Yep, we have one
Road.
at Sun Prairie. We have one on Mineral Point Road. We have one on
East Wash.
East Washington.
Yeah.
I think the address is Lean Road. And then we also have a store in Fitchburg.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then this is sort of almost more of just a curiosity, I think. There's the 3 windows
Yes.
on that south side that are kind of different than everything else. What are
Absolutely.
those there for?
So those 3 windows, those are for the break room for our employees.
Okay,
And so the rest of the building is the back of house. And
Sure.
so that's why we have spandrel, because we don't want to have natural light coming in on the product. So we actually did adjust the break room windows in this area to make them more on center between the material breaks. That was one comment that we had taken, I think, round 2. So that is why it's a little different for the staff.
okay. And then on the, I guess it's the west side, there is a loading dock.
Yes.
Any concerns with a truck being able to actually back in there? It seems tight to me, but I don't drive. trucks,
We have
so-
similar locations with the same layout and design, and we do auto turn designs to make sure that we fulfill those requirements with our large trucks. So we don't have concerns with it, and we've operated with that similar design before, so it should be smooth sailing. And
Okay.
the way our trucks deliver too, 8 to 10 trucks a week, and a lot of those trucks, 80% of them are becoming as Aldi from our distribution center. So they'll be coming in non-peak hours too. So it should
Okay.
be easy to maintain.
Strand did look at the auto turn and didn't see any issues with it.
Okay, good deal. I think that's it.
All right, Brian?
Well, number one, I think that it sounds like they've done their due diligence in trying to spruce this up a little bit. I personally like the look. I think they've blended materials well. Had some undulations in the roof lines, so I'm good with it the way it is. The bump outs might be advantageous, but I think this accomplishes that aesthetics the way it is. On the loading dock, I see there's a fence. That's gonna be facing Holiday Drive, right?
I think if you go down, Lauren, you're at the 2D elevations. It should show that on there. Right there. Top right corner.
Bottom one is gonna show a fence there,
And that's actually a railing on the retaining wall.
or railings, my
Mhm.
choice of words. That is facing Holiday Drive. I don't know, is there gonna be homes directly across from that?
All of the homes would back to it. So as
They'll
far
back
as
to
I know,
Holiday
yeah,
Drive.
as far as I know, there aren't any that would be facing Holiday Drive. They would be facing the opposite direction.
And that was one comment that was brought up in our first round. And we worked with our landscape architect to create a really nice landscape buffer between that portion from Holiday Drive to the truck dock. And we've done that before with several other sites where you really can't see it at all.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Sue? Yeah.
Another question. This is about 20,000 square feet.
Mhm.
Is that typical of the other Aldis in the area?
Um,
Or are they bigger? Or smaller?
this store will be bigger than Sun Prairie.
Okay.
Gotta go off memory lane here.
About
it-
Lean Road,
What's that?
about Lean Road.
Yeah, I did a long wall expansion in that store. It's under 20,000.
It's under 20. It's
Yeah.
Slightly.
Yeah,
And
I would say
see-
you might have the largest Aldi store in Dane County.
And I see that you have an area for expansion.
We do
Yeah.
have an area for expansion.
Where would that go? I can
Um,
kind of guess, but I just, the bottom.
the west elevation, there is a green space area between the railing, like the truck dock here, there is a section. If you go to the floor plan, Lauren, it's much more visible on that A131.
And you'd expand it by how many square feet?
Oh, go up, it was on that site plan. Was it Mark 2,400? 1,200? This area here. This green space area.
The expansion's how big? To be determined, or
Mark thinks it's around 1,200 square feet total.
1,200 interior gross square feet.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's some thickness of wall and whatnot. But
Okay.
Right, out of curiosity, for the 1,200 square foot expansion, just a little bit more retail space or more?
Yeah, that is the back of our sales floor.
Okay.
And so as a company, we have built stores in the past where we just went ahead and built that white box space. But as a company, we've become much more efficient and gone through sustainability and changes and looked at our refrigeration and our shelving and refixturing. So it's basically to help future-proof the site. We went through major remodeling expansion of our Aldi network of stores, our whole portfolio, 2016 through, we've got a few we're still wrapping up to this day. But at one point, we were expanding all of our stores, and then we stepped back and realized we didn't have to expand. We could refixture it and redo the layout to be able to create more linear footage within our stores. So the expansion is basically future-proofing Aldi and basically just making sure that we have an area for expansion if something were to change in the future. But right now, this sales floor and everything is good for a good period of time.
Okay, great. Okay, Joe?
Two more questions. Can you speak to any sustainability features that you're putting into this?
Yes, the entire store will be LED light fixtures. We also incorporate an energy management system. And we also do a heat reclaim system with our refrigeration to go into and we use, the company is CES for our HVAC system. So it's one large 25-ton CES unit essentially located on the rooftop. And that's where we reclaim a lot of heat from refrigeration, which is a great item for us as a grocer, because we obviously have a lot of refrigeration in the store. And we can control all of the HVAC in the building from that one unit. We just have too many splits for the auxiliary spaces. So that mechanical design, and there's a lot of articles from our sustainability team. And we've got a director who is primarily only doing sustainability for Aldi. I would say that Aldi has done a great job and won many awards over the years, leading the grocery way with changes that we've done. We've also incorporated a lot of different refrigeration components. Refrigeration is really complicated, so I don't want to bore you guys with those details, but we do a darn good job with the refrigeration side and trying to do our best to become carbon neutral. The building itself, we do have other components with our value and a lot of things with the building design and materials that we use to be more sustainable.
Okay. And then the other question, I don't know if you'll have this answer or not. What percentage of all these stores that open are still successful after 2, 5, 10 years?
Every project I've ever done has been pretty darn successful. So let's keep it going. No, we do a great job. We do a lot of research as a company. We've got a really sophisticated team and a lot of great resources that we use to make sure that we pursue excellent sites. And we've got a proven model and we've got a great portfolio of stores and metrics that we can review internally as a company, as a private company. So, you know, ultimately, I would say the stores that we evaluate are the ones that maybe have been a store for 20, 30 years. And a lot of times the dynamics of the retail area change, you know, the old Main Street to the new
Absolutely.
big box center. So primarily, those are the issues that we have with some of our portfolio stores, but not with our new locations.
Okay, thank you.
Just one question. Should be easy, maybe hard. I don't know. We'll find that out. When you're identifying communities to go to,
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that identification process. When you're looking at existing grocers, what types of populations meet your needs?
Yep.
The demographics of the all the different things of how you kind of choose your sites.
Yeah, so we have three, you know, market classes to really kind of talk about, you know, not breaking it down and getting too granular, but we've got rural markets, we've got city markets, and then we've got, you know, more denser populations as well in metropolitan areas. So we look at those different classifications itself. Dane County is over 500,000 people. So when we look at Dane County as a whole, we still have growth opportunity in Dane County itself. But demographically, there are certain metrics that we look at for those three categories of whether it's a rural community, city, or a metropolitan. And we look at other factors too. So demographics are very important in regards to population and a lot of those details that are very beneficial. But we also look at traffic counts. We look at competitors within the market. We look at the community itself and make sure that it's a growing community, it's sustaining itself. So there are several factors that we look into, and we also take into consideration cannibalization of existing stores. So we have to position ourselves for the long term with all the existing stores to make sure that they are all continue to grow in a positive way.
So the one store, and you probably can't answer this, but maybe you can. Sun Prairie
Mhm.
obviously has a large amount of grocers in Sun Prairie.
Yes.
How has that impact? Has that been a negative impact on the Aldi there or not necessarily?
I was very thankful that the Woodmans allowed us to pursue the site. It has been a great, excellent store for us. And I would say that the growth of Sun Prairie from the day that we first went there to now has only continued to grow, and that areas continue to grow. We know that we do a really good job to provide the best groceries, the highest quality for the best price. And we know that a lot of folks stop at our store first, then go to the other retailers. Or they go to that retailer first, then come to us. Because they save a heck of a lot of money getting organic blueberries for a very good price versus paying double or triple at other groceries. So overall, competition is good. It doesn't hurt. So that's a really great retail market. It's pretty wild to see how much that place has grown over the time since 2015 when we opened that store.
Thank you for that answer. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Great questions, guys. Any more? None? All right, we have a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve, let's see. To be determined based on discussion, it says. So
As
I'll make a
presented.
motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for being here tonight and for having the conversation with us.
I know, Kristen, I know, Mike Steinel traded a text with me. He's had a work-related commitment. He's on his way.
Okay.
So he
great.
hopes to participate in most of this next discussion.
Excellent, wonderful. So discuss and take action on kickoff meeting for the comprehensive plan. That is our next item.
Yes, so I have a little presentation to pull up here. We have Andy Cross and his merry band of followers who have come from the Lakota Group and SB Friedman and Toddy maybe here. Taddy is here. So I will hand it over to them and I will bring this over to you. Oh.
I like the merry bands of followers. Yeah.
Well, thank you all. I'm Andy Cross with the Lakota Group. It's a pleasure.
Can you turn the mic on?
There we go. It's wonderful to be back. Thank you for having us back. We're so excited to work with you guys on updating the village's comprehensive plan. It's going to be a fairly long process, often 14 to 16 months in that range, depending on, when we can get on commission agendas, board agendas, that can elongate it, scheduling this event or that event, but that's kind of the ballpark timeframe we're looking at. And so super excited to be working with you. This is, I think, it's not working, or do I need to turn it on? I do. You can tell I've never done a public presentation before. There we go. So this is what I'd like to cover with you this evening with my team here. We'll go talk about the project fairly broadly. I'd really like to talk to you all about public engagement. And I'd really like to talk to you. We'll talk about branding. We already had some fun at the staff level, kind of brainstorming. You saw some fun ideas there. We'll talk about that. And then I'm going to dive into some of the questions that we're going to be working with the whole community on with you guys. So it'll kind of put you in the mindset about what the comprehensive plan is going to address, the kind of conversations that we'll have around the community. And also, I'd really like your input on how to engage with the Waunakee community. Nobody knows this better than you guys. And so we'll talk about that, and then we'll close with next steps. So I will introduce our whole team. Before I do, let me touch on one other thing. The Plan Commission, as an appointed body by the village, will play an important role in having a public hearing eventually and making a recommendation to the Board of Trustees about the comprehensive plan. So given that the Plan Commission will have your separate role, I will refer to the group in this capacity as the steering committee, okay? Just to avoid confusion, we're going to be the steering committee together for the next year and a half. And then when we bring this forward to an approval, or maybe public meetings as the process goes on, we'll be the Plan Commission. You can put on that hat. But for simplicity, we're going to be the steering commission here, the steering committee here together tonight. So I have some slides directly talking about what that means. Now, who here has already worked on the comprehensive plan? Okay, wonderful. So you're familiar with the process and what it is. New guys, don't worry. We're going to have a lot of fun together, and I'll explain very clearly what your role is as the steering committee. Your role as the Plan Commission, you got that down. But when it comes to a steering committee, I'll tell you exactly what the expectations are, so you know what to expect and what your role is. It's not a lot, no homework. Don't worry about that. So allow me to introduce the team. Again, I'm Andy Cross, and we are joined by, I know the microphone won't pick it up, but it's always better when people introduce themselves. So starting with Hannah, won't you begin?
I think one thing we're gonna do, can you get the remote?
Oh,
We've got a portable microphone here that we'll use. Otherwise, we're not gonna pick you up on the recording. Okay.
thank you, Todd.
Hello.
Whoa. All right.
It's not as important for this room. It's really important for the recording and those watching.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Kroll. I'm a planner with Lakota Group, and it is so good to be back here.
Hi, everybody. Scott Ferris, president of Lakota Group. Thank you for having us.
Hi again, I'm Fran Rood. I'm a partner with SB Friedman Development Advisors. We're helping out with the market and economic assessment.
Yeah, my name is Derek Hungness. I am a transportation planner and traffic engineer with a company called Traffic Analysis and Design, and a longtime resident of Middleton.
All right, hold on to this. So that's the team. Very excited to have the group. Kapoor has done work in the region. Darren was here when we spoke with you back, December or January. And Kapoor has a long and rich history in Wisconsin, certainly by me in the Milwaukee, Kenosha, southeast corner, but then also in central Wisconsin as well. So we're so lucky and fortunate to have them on the team here. So let me talk to you a bit about the comprehensive plan. This was all, we touched on this way back when we first spoke all those months ago, but I'll just refresh your memories. We operate in a three-phase process. The first process is almost the most important, and that's what we'll be spending the next 5 or 6 months on together. We call it engage and assess. Really, it's about establishing the existing conditions. And the best way to think about why we're doing that is before we can start mapping a way forward, before we can agree on what we need to fix and what we want to improve, we need to have a shared understanding of where we're starting.
And so the end product is a state of the village report. And that will summarize all the public engagement that we'll be talking about in a bit, but it will also summarize the transportation and mobility standpoint, what's going on with WISDOT, the county highway department, and local roads and connectivity. So they'll look at that. Fran and her amazing team with SB Friedman will be looking at housing analysis and housing needs assessment, a market analysis, demographics and demographic trends. Where do we go? Where are we? Where have we been? So her team will look at all of that. And so the deliverable there then is a state of the village report that summarizes this. That comes to the steering committee before it goes anywhere else. Well, Todd will probably want to look at it, Todd and Lauren. But after they look at it, then it'll come to the steering committee. And so you will all look at it and then we can change it. Well, you know, we really think the community needs to know this or see it this way. So we can massage it. When the steering committee has approved it, then it goes on the project website. And that's when the public can digest it. And then we'll go into phase 2. And that's where we start testing the waters with ideas, solutions, recommendations, different approaches. Some of them will really resonate with the steering committee and importantly with the residents around here, the residents in the village. And some may be like, well, we kind of don't feel like that's Waunakee. Why don't we look at it this way? Also, when we think about the built form, when you say, hey, do you like a downtown? If you ask 5 different people, you're going to get 5 different answers about what a cool downtown is. And everybody will always say more restaurants. Just be ready. And so we can do visual preference surveys. Hey, does this downtown resonate? What makes a park great for you? Well, you know, a 25-year-old and a 49-year-old have 2 very different answers. You know, if you have a family, if you're just, you know, in college, you want different things out of a park. So these are all the things that we'll work on in this phase 2. And then the end stage of that is having a planning framework. How is the comprehensive plan going to lay out? What are the key community character elements, the key community culture and values that it carries through, and what are the approaches? That's the end of phase 2. And then phase 3 is planning, is we write the plan and we come up with an implementation plan. And that's something we at the Lakota Group take it very seriously. I was a city planner in Lauren's chair for a very long time, and having an implementable plan is so important to me. I've worked with comprehensive plans that just didn't do anything. They didn't give you direction. And so my mayor, my supervisors would say, how's that, you know, are we doing the comprehensive plan? Well, it told me to consider something and I did. Does that mean it's done? So our plans are so implementable. That's super important to me to carry through to the village staff. So that's what we'll do. And then it's very important to us to have kind of a 1-year, 18-month check-in. Hey, how's it going? Did it work? You know, was it as, you know, did people stay bought into it? So steering committee, what is your role? Overall, we're looking at 5 meetings throughout the process. Again, not a huge heavy lift. And you will be looking at the work products before they go out to the public. They come to you guys first, before the village board. I would say before the plan commission, not the case here. And so it's important to provide feedback. We'll be looking to you guys to provide feedback on the findings and conclusions. You are representing this project in the community. So you are the plan champions. Nobody else is going to be excited about it if you guys aren't excited about it. And that includes the village leadership. They're looking to you guys as a steering committee to be like, yes, we know where this is at. This is on track. Here are the next steps. You'll be able to report on the next steps because we'll be in touch. Typically, we have bi-weekly check-in meetings with the village staff, and so they'll be in communication with you both at the plan commission level and just as the village staff level to kind of give updates on where we're at between our meetings. Increasing community awareness. You have networks in the community. So we'll be looking to you to help drum up people to come out, put it out on your Facebooks, on your Twitter, on your company's website, whatever, blast your email chain to get people to come to the open house, to get people to come to this, to take the online survey, all these things you'll be able to help out with. Again, we'll be in touch throughout the process, so you'll know. But that's the principal elements of your role as the steering committee. You're the first filter that these things come through, from our ideas to the state of the village report, everything. So let's talk about public engagement. We'll do some fun exercises in a bit, I swear. There's just a few more things I want to touch on with you. We have some really core tools that work well to bring people into the process. A comprehensive plan, I mean, and the two of you know this from your work on it in the past, but a comprehensive plan isn't something that that somebody in Todd's position calls up and says, can you write us one? Yes. Okay. Call me back in 18 months when it's done. Click. That's not how it works. This is a community-led and a community-informed document. And so how do we get that community voice? We do it through some very focused tools and initiatives that we enjoy. That's actually kind of the fun part of the job, is getting out there and learning. A key part will be focus group discussions. Todd and Lauren have already worked on a collection of residents, business owners, property owners to bring into this. We have a few core, subject areas. Think school district representatives. Think the building and development community. I think the small business community. If there's a downtown business alliance, something like that. Often seniors. It works well to meet with a group of seniors to see how they feel about the village of Waunakee. And then we love meeting with high school students. That's actually a heck of a lot of fun, because think about the different perspectives you get from the senior community to the high school senior community. I just thought of that. Write that down. That's really fun. So the different perspectives, the different visions, and the different ideas about what's important and what people want to talk about and what they want to change in the village. One group says there's nothing to do, and the other group says they feel unsafe walking anywhere. So it's great. And then community conversations. I want to work with you to schedule 1 or 2 kind of community conversations events. This is where we invite everybody under the sun, kind of break people up into different tables. They can pick where they want to sit, and they just tell us, they inform certain topics. It's really fun and productive, and we get a lot out of it. Pop-up events, think farmers market, where we can just set up a booth and either do a mini kind of engagement discussion, but if it's something that's really hustle and bustle, maybe a 4th of July parade, at least we're handing out flyers about the project website, and I'll get to that in a sec. But if there are other ideas that are more appropriate for the village, that's what I want to talk to you guys about. And we can do it tonight if you have ideas. Otherwise, we'll make sure you have contact information, and I'll reach out as we start to kind of pull together the Public Participation Plan, PPP. And that's a document that actually needs to be adopted by your alter egos, the Plan Commission. So we'll be bringing a PPP back to you, and once we have it finalized with our iterative work together. But be thinking about that. Jot that down if you're taking any notes about other ideas about ways to engage the community. Maybe think about community events, what really might be effective. This is where we'll rely on you. This isn't just in person. We will set up a project website, and building off our next thing I'm going to talk to you about, branding. We can do a website, maybe like, I don't know, WaunakeeComprehensivePlan.com. Who wants to type all that out? Who's going to remember it? So, but we will have a project website. We'll come up with a fun, memorable name for it. And that's where, among other things, we'll have an online survey. And we'll develop that, kind of work cooperatively. If there are specific issues going on that you think people are going to talk about anyway, you can ask somebody, what do you think some of the concerns you have about Waunakee's growth? Well, if there's a really contentious gas station development going on, that's all anybody's going to talk about. So maybe we could just get ahead of some things, just so that we can actually get meaningful feedback when we try to focus it in different directions. And I mentioned the visual preference survey. These can be really powerful in kind of developing what a character image is for the community for the Century Street corridor. Like, what does it look like to you? Do you want it to be pedestrian oriented? No, not really. Okay. Because we have Main Street, so so if Main Street's got its character, what does the character on Century/Q kind of start to look like? Or do we want to carry the Main Street character further west? That kind of those things. So those are all cool things that we'll talk about. Project branding. Look at those fun examples. I hope it got you thinking a little. I understand you got a copy of the presentation. So we've had a lot of fun. Bloomfield, Wisconsin is down in the southeast in Walworth County, kind of down by the Illinois border. So in Bloomfield, they're very nature oriented. They have a ton of wetlands limiting their development, capability. So there's some real development discussions there we're having that are very cool. And how can they continue to grow, but be absolutely trapped by wetlands and sort of confined. But building off of their flower theme, actually, I want to give full credit to Hannah Kroll. She came up with that, and I'm still just crazy about it. And then Monument is a town out west that we helped with a comprehensive plan. So Monument 2040 just rolled off the tongue. And we developed this, and it's kind of got a lot of iconography that you associate with Colorado, but a lot of almost retro national park district kind of colors. So we'd love to work with you guys about something that resonates. And again, these went through vetting with their steering committees. And so I'd like to work with you guys on what some ideas are. And so you saw this in our fun brainstorming we had at the staff. We were throwing around ideas, and we sort of ended up with Key to the Future. I think it's cute as hell. You guys might think it's kitschy, and it's fine. This is your plan. But I thought that was great. And then some of the key icons in town are some of those. So before we dive into some more fun planning stuff, let's think creativity. As you guys read through this before, does anything jump out in your mind? Any cool things that image-wise that are very Waunakee? No? And no's an okay answer.
The old water tower on Main Street?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that thing.
Yeah.
And is it pretty well recognized? Like everybody would get it?
If you come into the community from any 4 places, that's the thing you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, you see the one by Culver's too.
Well, yeah, the newer one.
The skyline.
That's fair, but all 4,
Yeah.
that's the one that's noticed.
Yeah, it is. It's very cool. Yeah. Is it in good shape?
Standing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's-
Just nobody leans against it, but it's there.
There's
We
been
could all look
improvements
that
to
good
make
at
sure
that
that it
age.
continues standing.
Yeah, Joe and Brian.
Train depot.
It's Main Street.
Yeah, yeah, the depot.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So, Andy, I know you like the Key to the Future. But we can combine both. The stone bridge in the park, that outline is iconic on our logos and other things. But you could actually use that as the key teeth. If you're making the key, you're gonna have a key, a side view of
Like
a
an
key,
old school key.
but the key teeth are, I'm doing it with my hands here, but the way the bridge goes. And anyway, how about that?
Graphic designer in there.
Right. Have you thought about consulting?
I try to draw and
You
it
did?
did
I thought you were too funny.
I didn't do very good, but I think there's an opportunity there, so.
Yeah.
So we're saying the bridge at Murphy Park.
Yeah, no, just the one.
Yeah, and Mike, did you have any thoughts? What are your thoughts?
thought of like water tower.
Yeah.
Since we moved here 30 years ago. So that'd be-
Microphone.
I've always liked the idea of the water tower. That's been here since we moved here 30 years ago, and I just think it's kind of one of those iconic things about Waunakee. So that'd be one I'd prefer.
Another tooth to the key.
You read my mind.
Yeah.
Or the handle of the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I am utterly biased, but what do you think about Key to the Future? Do you think it's too cheeky? Key to the Future as a tagline?
Can we sleep on it?
Yes, 100%. We need to make no decisions tonight. I just think it's,
They're Brainstorm and Chat GPT combined.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Doesn't the school
So-
use that for some stuff?
Do they?
Like with the basketball team or
Oh.
something? I think.
Some people really like the key. They call it the key,
oh,
meaning Waunakee.
I didn't know that.
Others can't stand it.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that all flies. Brian, I can tell by your kind of,
Feel the Waunakee.
One thought as we're having good engagement conversation, my advice is just everybody turn your mics on and just let them stay on through this if there's gonna be a lot of back.
The problem with this is in Westport. Isn't it? Is that Westport? This side? Yeah.
On which one?
Some are, Sue, some aren't. I
It
think
doesn't say Westport.
might be three are in Waunakee, one isn't.
All right.
Well, sleep on it. And that's absolutely fine. I'm so glad to be having this conversation with you guys. And, brainstorming means some ideas are going to be like, no, but that's good because bad ideas get you thinking about good ideas. So all good there. And then, do you want to kind of just move forward with Waunakee 2040? You know, as a 15-year time frame. We don't have to. We can just call it the Waunakee Comprehensive Plan.
Oh, no, I like
like
that. I like that.
Waunakee 2040.
Yeah,
I do too.
comp plan's boring.
Waunakee 2045. That's just not as easy as, you know, I don't know. 2040's got 2 zeros. It's a nice, pretty number.
It's aesthetically pleasing.
It is aesthetically pleasing, Waunakee 2040. Well, why don't we run with that softly
Okay.
and chew on that as well. And then I will email the group in a few days after we've had some time to kind of digest it and get your feedback. Would that be okay?
Sounds great.
Okay, good. Now on to more serious stuff. I want to give you, especially those of you on the steering committee who have not worked in a comprehensive plan before, what are we going to talk to people about? A comprehensive plan truly is comprehensive in nature. That's why we have such an incredible team here. Think of a strategic plan. That's really granular. Here are the steps we're going to take in a 3 to 5 year time frame. That's a strategic plan. And often a strategic plan is a recommendation or a goal that comes out of a comprehensive plan. But a comprehensive plan is up here, a strategic plan is more granular down here. So that's kind of the difference when people ask you, didn't we just do a strategic plan? No. Or a comprehensive plan is like, no, that was a strategic plan. So have that in the back of your mind. And what it does is not only dig into elements like housing needs forecasting and parks and open space and all those things in one single document, but it really needs to look at things at a high level, because what a comprehensive plan does is bring everything together. And I do want to talk to you about this, but you're probably aware that Wisconsin state growth law, Wisconsin law requires a comprehensive plan to have a defined set of elements. And even until not too long ago, and I think even in current practice, some plans will be written with a housing chapter, a parks and open space chapter, an infrastructure chapter, a transportation chapter. I don't like that. We at the Lakota Group really try and get away from that, because what that sort of doesn't really appreciate is how much these things all come together. And you can't fix one or talk about improving one element without talking about how it impacts something else. Because we can say we need more, we need more missing middle housing. We need more single family housing. We need more apartment or, dense multifamily housing. Okay, but can the transportation network handle it? Or is there the infrastructure there to even plan for it? So we can talk about, oh yeah, we're going to grow out the Northeast. Yeah, we got that all figured out. Okay, but there's a lot that goes into that. And then parks and open space. When we talk about a level of service being low for this part of town, how can we make that better? We'll think about the mobility needs that you need and the public investment that you need to make that happen. So we really prefer to look at things on what we call a systems-based approach, where all these things, where these multiple elements are looked at in concert, instead of having a housing chapter where we just talk about all that and then talk about transportation. It's really how do we bring all that together, and it's about quality of life and establishing a shared vision for how the village will grow. So as we think about what makes Waunakee special, that's what we're going to be asking all these different groups. And again, when you ask a 17-year-old, when you ask a business owner who's been, churning and burning, keeping the hardware store open, or, the restaurant on Main Street, churning and burning on that, he's going to have some different thoughts about that, as is the retired school teacher or the retired residents elsewhere. So, but let's kind of go around the room, Madam Chair. I'll let you kind of direct, but when you think about, okay, here's a quick way to answer it. When people say, where do you live? Well, I live in Waunakee, Wisconsin. What do you tell them about it? What are the first few things that you share?
Great schools.
We have to give 2, because after great schools, then what? What's the next thing we tell them? That's what we all say. Parks.
Location,
Oh, what's so sexy about the location?
prime access to the interstate. We're not in Madison. That's about all I got on that.
But accessibility to both
Yeah,
sides of
we
it.
can access Madison where we don't have to be there.
To the west side, the east
Get the east
side,
side.
downtown,
Yep.
and out of town on the interstate, all in almost equal time. People don't realize that. I grew up here, and I tell people that, they go, oh, Waunakee, you're way out in the middle of nowhere. I said, oh, no, I can get anywhere. And I would not want to
You've
live
got
on the
options,
west
too,
side.
right? Yeah.
I'd have to do the belt line and be backed up with traffic and et cetera, et cetera. People don't even realize it.
I think connectivity, and I mean that by our infrastructure. You know, I look at a lot of the neighborhoods that have been built and the connectivity through walking trail or paths, even some of the road infrastructure. It's interesting, the connectivity of our infrastructure, but how do we connect the different areas of the village?
Yeah,
as well?
love it. Yeah, that's great.
And then I was gonna say, sort of related to Sue's comment where you mentioned people think it's out in the middle of nowhere. I think people do enjoy the fact that we're still surrounded by agriculture, unlike some of the other Madison communities.
Right. There's a distinct, you leave Madison and it's not a far drive, you know, it's a couple miles from our neighborhood. And then you're in Waunakee, but there is that space in between the two.
Madison originally had a greenbelt policy where other communities would not butt up to it. And that is exactly what's happened in Fitchburg, Verona, Middleton, et cetera. The only place that hasn't happened is here.
Well,
Jill, what are your thoughts?
The thing that kind of got me going was his comment about infrastructure, and it made me think, you know, I think the vast majority of the village has got fiber internet, and of course Spectrum has got their stuff in place. And so, I mean, we're well connected from a technology standpoint as well.
good point.
Mike? Yeah.
I think just echoing on some of the stuff that said, that rural feel, because we've got green space and because we're laid out the way we are. It's still, even though we're 15,000 plus people, we still have that small town feel, I think. You know, it's more of a, you know, they always talk about Middleton, good neighbor community and blah, blah, blah. I feel like it really is neighborhoods around here. And you've got that feel of a town, a fraction of the size we are, and we still, I would hate to see us ever lose that, you know, where you get that city feel. That's just, I think we don't have that right now, and I'd hope we can keep things the way they are as long as we can from that perspective.
Great thoughts.
What do you think, Chris?
I just, pace of growth. I think our pace of growth has been phenomenal. Not too fast, not too slow.
Just
I'll
right.
say it's not an infrastructure thing, but we do a really good job of integrating newcomers into community. It's an
Really?
easy place to move to. Yeah, and we do see a lot of, we have a pretty substantial resident churn from year to year, kind of, you know, people moving in, you know, they're here for their career for 5 or 10 years, and then they move out, and then a lot of us stay as well. So that kind of regeneration is, I think, hard to capture.
And what's off of that a little bit too, and Chris can probably, as much as anybody, talk to this point, is despite the growth in Waunakee, there is still the, I'm not gonna use the right words, right? But the root families are still here, right? There are, a lot of them are still here, and they, through generations, are, you know, you see them coming through the high schools, right, and stuff like that. Which is interesting, even though this community has gotten so big, that core is still here.
Well, that says something. That's pretty cool. All right, and you'll have many other chances. Think about the online survey, among other things, to keep building off of this. But as you talk to people about coming to the open house or something like that, you can ask them that question. Hey, what do you tell people when about Waunakee when they ask you about it? And then I get them thinking. So on the flip side, what are some concerns? You know, I don't like to say problems, and I damn sure don't like to say threats. But what are some community concerns? I imagine losing that small town character, you know, could be a concern for a lot of people. What else, as you hear, as you talk to students, as you talk to teachers, as you talk to the manager at ACE? What about, you know, what are people like? I mean, traffic.
Worry about what's gonna happen to Main Street with traffic and our small businesses, depending on what the state does to us.
Yeah.
Because with growth, I mean, I think you are all aware that Dane County has these huge population growth projections, which just blow my mind. So how many of those people are coming here versus other places? I mean, I think we have to be very cognizant of that. In the past, we've been very good at really controlling our growth, make sure that we could absorb, you know, that growth. And I think that's going to become even more critical, because if this pace of growth actually happens, it kind of scares me.
Yeah. Chris, what are your thoughts on
I
that?
think you're referring to not our pace of growth,
Population.
Dane County.
Yeah, but we're in it.
Madison
We're in,
market, which we're
we can
part of.
only go so many places. Obviously, some will come here.
Yeah, I mean, I look at not only our community, but the communities around us are growing and we've become a spot to go through.
Oh,
So we have a lot of traffic that comes through our community as a result of that. Because of that, going from the east side, they're gonna come through us to go to the west side of Madison. Going from the west side, they're gonna go to the east side through us.
wow.
So that's something that we have to take into account big time. I think as our traffic counts get bigger, as you're talking about with that growth, that's gonna, our own growth will accelerate it, but then that may magnify it even more to help us with that infrastructure improvement that we're gonna need.
That's great.
The question is, do we have adequate infrastructure for that? I mean, I don't know.
Mike, what are your thoughts? What are your concerns?
I think one of the things is being as close as we are to Madison. Just thinking from a business perspective, there are people that want, it's come up forever about a second grocery store and all that. And just the amenities you have with some of the bigger communities, but yet we're so close to Madison, it doesn't make sense to have certain kinds of businesses here.
Absolutely.
So it's just, from a business's standpoint, they're not gonna locate here just because there isn't the demand necessarily that they'd have, and it's too easy from people to go into Madison to go to a certain place that they're looking
Scale
for.
up.
Right,
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
have it here locally. As we're talking, it's 30 minutes, you can be anywhere in Madison. Businesses know that, they're not gonna locate some whatever here.
You'll never get a Costco.
Right.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Sorry to break it to you.
Right. So it's
Yeah, but you're
managing some
absolutely
of the expectations, I
Yeah.
think, of what's realistic versus, we're gonna have a lot of traffic and we're gonna have a lot of stuff going on, but it isn't necessarily maybe gonna be what people think should be here
Mhm.
without understanding that dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kristen, do you mind if I chime in?
Go ahead, yeah, please.
Related to that is having enough space for businesses. Cause we, as staff, talk to people on a regular basis who would like to locate their business in Waunakee or relocate within Waunakee. And we just don't have the amount of commercial or industrial space that they need, or the type of amenities that they need as a business. So as much as we'd like to say, yeah, come here, a lot of times we feel like we're kind of backed up against a wall because we can't tell them, go over there.
Well, that is important too, because you need to keep, and I know we struggle this, and this has come up different times about having the right mix of business versus residential. And if you see other communities that are sort of bedroom communities and have too much residential,
Oh, yeah.
it can throw your tax base off.
Mhm.
And individuals just have to pay a greater share. So luckily, we've had a nice industrial park or commercial park, but it's hard to keep that mix right when you've got a lot of housing need. You gotta be able to find ways to get those businesses in there to balance it.
Yeah, and we're probably behind on that mix. I think
Yeah,
we've talked
the-
about that before.
But from a planning perspective, there's no ideal mix. It's whatever works best for that community. But if I'm recalling correctly, back to the housing task force study, we were somewhere around 80% assessed residential. A little over 80% assessed residential. So we're very heavily a bedroom community
Okay.
versus either a manufacturing destination or some combination of that.
I think that whole issue needs a deep dive into the detail of it, because there was, in the past, we've not wanted to have just empty big box metal buildings that just store things and people aren't working in them. It's just trucks going in and out of the community. And those businesses would take up a lot of land, but they didn't really bring much here. And so, that whole mix in terms of zoning, et cetera, is a discussion for the community.
Absolutely.
Joe?
One of the things you mentioned is we're unlikely to get a Costco. And I think the vast majority of people in this area would celebrate that.
Okay.
In general, we don't want big box retail. We want to keep, our small local stores. I love having Ace Hardware over here. I mean, it's so
Right.
handy and so fantastic to be able to walk in there and see Steve and say, this is what I need. And he says, oh yeah, it's right down in this aisle and he can take you right to it. It's
love it.
amazing. So I think that's one of the things.
Okay.
Traffic is absolutely, in my head, the number one, way over everything else right now.
Wow.
If you try driving through downtown you know, at 7:45, 8 o'clock in the morning, it's tough. Same thing in that evening rush. And then the other thing, I think we need to be very careful about becoming Madison.
And what does that mean to you?
We don't want to be Madison, but there are, I would venture to guess, certain components of what make Madison great that we do probably want to take and make our own. But we don't want to take the entire thing and just become mini Madison.
Right. Well, I would encourage you to clarify what that means in your
Yes.
mind, not tonight necessarily.
Oh, yeah, that's a much longer discussion.
But yeah, refine what it means to not be Madison, you know, does it, yeah, and then what about Madison is actually kind of cool.
If
that
we're
would actually
keeping count,
benefit.
though, that's twice so far it's been brought up, so.
Yeah.
What,
If we're keeping count, 2 times so far it's been brought up.
I think you.
I'll even throw in
Yeah.
that people are often saying, we don't want to be Sun Prairie,
Yeah.
True. Yep.
at this point. So.
and what does that mean to you?
Uh,
Don't they want-
that they chose to go the Madison route and they became a city and they changed their demographic of who's living there and the big boxes are all there. They moved out of Madison into Sun Prairie.
Because
what-
Madison wasn't very good to them, so they went to
Correct.
Sun Prairie.
Demographic, younger people?
Well, you're talking about Costco and Menards and all the big boxes have moved
That's
there.
East Town.
And the staff that's required to support those businesses changed the demographic of what they had for housing
So lower income.
to very much
Okay.
in Sun Prairie. Apartments are everywhere
Well-
in Sun Prairie.
I actually had apartments written down, but I wasn't going to be the one to say it because I live in an apartment. But I would say that one of the biggest differences between Waunakee and the city of Sun Prairie is the pace of growth. Sun Prairie grows a lot very quickly. Waunakee has tried to be a little bit more subdued. We have a fairly consistent number of single family housing permits that are issued each year. So it's more predictable over time and we're able to keep up with those infrastructure costs and things like that. But when I hear about Sun Prairie, it's usually they're growing so fast and they're adding all these stores and all these apartments and personally, I have no problem with apartments. Again, I live in an apartment. But there's a vision of apartments that people have that it's going to change the character of your community from single family to something else.
Absolutely.
I hear it almost exclusively in relation to the farmland that is now retail center. You know, the large, the Costco and the big theater and whatnot, which we all go to, we all really like it. But when I think people like that farmland belt around us, and so at least when I'm talking to people and they're saying we don't want to become Sun Prairie, it's referring to that retail core. Now, we'd also like to not have to drive as far either, so thread that needle, right? So-
The highway frontage, though, that was their strength.
Ooh, yeah,
Okay, they use, I
yeah.
would say the upside to their story is they use, oh, so sorry.
Yeah.
For them.
It's red, now I'm on again.
There you go.
The upside to that story, even though there are some negatives to growth and speed and velocity, the upside is that all that tax base that comes off the highway supports what they want in terms of quality of life in their downtown. So they're trying to protect and preserve what you guys just talked about having by maintaining that. The problem is it's hard to get businesses and shops down there unless you have more people down there
Yeah.
walking around. So they can't get the mom and pops and the restaurants. They all want to be out on the highway. So that's a big conversation I think we're going to have during this whole process.
Yeah, and DeForest has our highway frontage. here
Exactly.
too, so, yeah.
And I'm particularly concerned or interested to find out about what I would call you're the revolving sun, but there's all these little towns and communities that revolve around you that have a lot of impact on who you are and what you'll be and where you're going and how things happen. So when we talk about traffic that comes from Madison, that comes from they're coming through other towns to get to you. You're in the middle. You're not on those edges. And so the impact of what happens in other places is particularly important in this process that we're going to have a lot of talks about, I think, as we go forward.
I think the other thing we have that we missed as an asset is we have these beautiful neighborhoods. I mean, we've got these people live in a neighborhood, they've got a name, whether it's, 6 Mile or wherever it is all over. They have their communities, their neighborhood associations and they're pretty well defined. And then we have the downtown and young people are moving into the older homes and revitalizing them. I think that's a major asset because me personally, I'm in the real estate business, worked for a developer at 3,000 apartments. I've worked on subdivisions, et cetera, and I like having single family homes or homes available to people and not becoming just an apartment area. Apartments are kind of a low hanging fruit for developers, are very easy to build it. They can finance them, much more difficult to do housing. The question is, how do you make the housing affordable? And we are only one of millions of communities around the country that have the same problem. So it's not like it's unique, but trying to deal with that and still maintain the ability to own a home and be in a neighborhood and not, because in Madison, I can tell you, they're actually, I think, wanting people to live more in apartments and not single family homes. And I don't think that's our culture here.
That's what they're
I'm
incentivizing.
okay with
Yeah.
apartments. I grew up in apartments. I've been in many apartments and there are very good ones. It depends on who owns them and manages them long term
Always.
as to how well they.
Well, as we speak about housing, one of the things that I've run into is that you get residents who should be aging out of their single family homes to open it up to young families, but they got nowhere to go.
The apartments cost more than your mortgage and your taxes.
Isn't that shocking? Yeah. But do you feel like there is any sort of stream for elderly residents, hitting that 90-year-old mark to get out of their houses? As is there single family attached ranches, something like that? Do you feel like there is?
We've had a hard time. We have a developer that's been trying to do that,
Mhm.
and is in he has a plot of land where there's a lot of grade issues. So when we were talking about specifically developing for my parents, for
Yeah,
example, were in their
exactly.
80s and need a zero entry, they can't have an exposed basement. Yeah, they can't have 3 steps up. Yeah. All
That's
of
hard
that.
when the land goes like that.
It is, yeah, it is. But we don't have, we're missing some of the, what's the Oakwood Village. We don't have an aging in place community either here that they do in some other parts of Dane County. And so when people are looking at making that transition, I think about it a lot because this is what we're doing in our family right now, is if they're in the community, they have to leave almost always. What is available here is very short supply and long waiting lists. So. Yeah.
And that keeps housing from freeing up.
Mhm.
And, then prices go up because when, young families finally move, they're able to sell. So just, there's so many factors that go into it. And that's what I pay Fran Root for right there.
All right.
All right, now let's talk about moving forward. We've reflected on, we'll call the good and the bad. And now, instead of looking backward, let's look forward. So when you think about, this isn't in 5 years, 3 years when construction's finally done, when traffic finally gets back to normal. This is more like 8 years, 10 years out. We call an exercise that you'll see with the public, postcards from the future. And so if you write a postcard from 2040, let's say the lifetime of this plan, and say, oh my gosh, Waunakee is, what will that look like to you? So, and you don't even, spitball some ideas now, but these are the kind of the ways we're gonna get, the moms and the dads and the kids there thinking about planning. And because a lot of people don't think about their hometown like this. I know I didn't when I was a kid. And so, what does it look like? Well, gosh, yeah, traffic doesn't, go 15 mile an hour on a queue heading up from Middleton. But what else? See if you can spitball a couple ideas.
So I think we've got really great pedestrian paths and multimodal paths in some parts of the village, and in other parts of the village, we're really missing that piece, and the two aren't connected very well.
Yeah.
So stronger pedestrian pathways, safer pedestrian pathways in some neighborhoods.
Pedestrian and bicycle.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
hard to go anywhere.
And, one thing I try to say to kind of nudge people is that you've mentioned you don't want 6 or 7 story apartment buildings. Oh, no, that's not us. Okay, but density is going to be essential to inform, to feed the downtown, to support the downtown you want. You want more restaurants and bars. Oh, yes, we need it badly. Okay, well, the 800 single-family homes around there aren't going to support any more. That's why they're not going in. But if there's more density, okay, so what does density look like to you? Oh, 3 or 4 stories. Now we've got a starting point. Now we can talk. And so a vision for Waunakee maybe some sort of gentle density, like getting some multifamily units in here that aren't Madison. Microphone. What did you say?
We have some downtown, we have
Yeah.
some downtown. Just quite
We
the
don't have-
discussion.
Yeah, well, like townhomes would be great. Owner occupied townhomes would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I think redeveloping or upgrading Century Avenue, we did our downtown has changed dramatically in the last 15 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we could have that kind of transformation here and kind of our, I don't want to say it's our older retail, but our like 1970s, 1980s retail.
You can say older.
Yeah.
But
I'm
even
from the
that,
70s. I don't want it
right,
that to be
so
older.
Gen X thing. But yeah, even that what we see downtown, the newer construction, that is sort of a gentle density. People
Yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
They're okay with it. That is vibrant. That means life to them. And it's, there is, think about all the extra spending capacity that there is downtown than there was before that was there. When that was the old Walden bookstore and whatever the stores we had that we grew up in that aren't there anymore.
Tell me, Brian, what did you guys, I monopolized the conversation there for a
I've
few
got
seconds here.
kind of 2 thoughts. One of them dealing with the restaurants and things. And yeah, we can just say more restaurants, but I think more than that, we need a variety. At one time, there was the thought that we had 6 pizza places or something, and
8
or whatever it was.
That's a lot of pizza.
And we don't have all of that pizza anymore. We seem to be going more towards Hispanic type foods and that sort of thing. So there's getting to be more of that. We're still missing probably a good Italian, something like that. So there's specific things that I think it would be advantageous for us to, see if we can come up with a motivation to be able to do that. The other thing, to play off the paths, one thing that I did in April was a challenge for American Heart Association. It was bike 200 miles. And in order to bike 200 miles, I pretty much had to get out of Waunakee. Well, one of the things that I did was go out to the different paths, the Capital City Trail and some of those sorts of things. There's a lot of that throughout Dane County. But it's really, we're not connected to that.
Interesting.
So I really, and it's not necessarily something that we can do. It's probably something that we need to work with the towns and things around us to be able to make sure that those kind of things can happen. So.
Great thoughts. Great thoughts. Brian, anything in your noodle?
Well, I'm gonna go off of your Century Avenue. To me, the downtown we have is very nice, right? But how do we look at not just that part, but even this corridor? And it's not necessarily downtown, but it's our business district, right? That people can actually walk and spend time. It isn't that far. It's 3 blocks or whatever it is, right? So to have a area here in this part of town where, from 3 blocks that way to 3 blocks that way and vice versa, right? This all is an area to congregate and whether it's restaurants or shopping or whatever it might be. I think we need to maybe look a little bit beyond just the corridor that's currently just downtown, and how do we expand that, but yet keep it in the heart of the village.
That's great. That's great.
Chris?
I would say this is our looking out as aspirations, like you're saying. So vision, I would like to see to make sure that we have a really good land use plan that promotes a strong sense of community within. We have that right now as a small town feel, making sure we keep that, as Mike brought up earlier, the strong sense that people are connected to one another within the community and doing things together, that they don't feel they have to leave, but they're all here, whether they're 17 as a senior in high school or a senior. I'll use your thing right there.
Absolutely, it's yours to
With
use.
that, I think that's important to connect all the different demographics, groups, period.
Okay.
To make it an inviting place for all to come to. But that land use plan, I think, is going to be critical with that, and infrastructure to go with it.
Well, I love how you're thinking about how these things all come together. I love that. Okay.
Sue and Mike?
Just kind of same thing. I just think continuing what we've done, whether it's land use, continuing working with the school district, you know, one of the things that sticks in my mind a lot, there's somebody I work with that's in another town near here, close to Madison like this. And I know they've talked about how much it comes up that they're talking something in their city or village or whatever. Well, what's Waunakee doing? And my term for it is Waunakee envy. And I want us to
Like
keep that, you
Okay.
know, we've got a very relational community. We've done a lot to support schools, to have a good infrastructure with what we have here. And I think anything we do 10 years from now, my hope is that the feel is the same, that we've, you know, worked on land use, we've coordinated with, surrounding communities to make sure as they're incorporating or whatever else is happening, that it still fits, it works well for us to be able to develop commercial space, keep the downtown in good shape, you know, build the right mix of housing and just continue on. So people want to look at us as somebody that they'd aspire to be in their own right. You know what I mean?
Love it. I love it. How are we doing on time, Madam Chair? I don't want to.
We're at 7:01.
Okay.
I feel like this is one of those jewel things or something. How do you all or not communicate with the surrounding communities? That was a great point. I think comprehensive plan today is not like it used to be. It's not your island and their island. It's a regional discussion. And it's about playing off of each other's strengths and find out where there's collaborative. You just talked about pathways. I can tell you, we're doing the countywide comprehensive plan for Sauk County right now. And up in Sauk County, they're all worried because all your people are moving up there and changing the demographic and housing prices up there radically. And when they go up there and people say, oh, 500,000, that's no problem, we can buy that. That changes a lot of what's
Where are they
going on
moving
with people that live up there.
Where
Huh?
are they moving from?
They're moving up from Madison area. They're
Yeah.
bypassing
That's
you, they're
right.
going up there, they get 5 acres of
Moving
land
from
for half of
Madison.
what it costs here.
That's why
And
we
they
want to
jump
be
on
Madison.
12, they get home in 35 minutes. But I'm pointing all this is it's a regional discussion. And it's about figuring out where your strengths are, where you fit into that conversation, and then developing the game plan that puts you in a good position moving forward. It is land use. But it also is strength in terms of thinking about where your strength is for commercial or industrial or housing or whatever it might be. And you really have to have, it's not just envy. All these communities are doing comprehensive plans. They're all thinking about what everybody else is doing. Verona's doing one right now. And they're thinking about what's going on up in this end because you're all pulling from the same people who work at Epic.
So
Okay,
this is
that's
just
why all
my,
these
this is just
apartments.
my opinion, but I'll give you a little perspective on the history and some people in here might remember it or not, but how long has 12 been there? 20 years now?
Highway 12?
Yeah.
Oh, my family moved to
With the
Sauk,
corridor
yeah.
that it is now,
Okay, the
about
corridor that is-
almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And that was fought tooth and nail for a long time because a certain administrator in Dane County did not want to have 4 lanes to Sauk.
Mhm.
And this is why, because they didn't want people leaving Dane County. They wanted to keep them in Madison. But now with Highway 12, you can make it up there in 15 minutes. So now it's a good place to grow to. And it's kind of backfired on Madison now because people are leaving.
But there's still a huge housing demand in these markets right now that's underserved or under supported. And they're just moving because people can move. And it's changed, but it's changing all the things that it's changing all the character of these communities. That's the biggest thing. I think what you're all talking about is protecting the character of what's important in this community, the fundamentals of this community. And you can have change and you can have growth and you can change the whole corridor down Century and still maintain the values of the community. Change is a good thing as long as you manage it and somebody else doesn't. But if you don't think of yourself in the bigger sphere of conversation of the region and just turn a blind eye on that, you will get bypassed and all the ills of all that will still fall upon you. So a lot of this is preparing yourself, thinking forward as somebody didn't want to think about. 12 was a gateway to change everything, right? Same thing about the highway departments are making their plans and they're making their plans in isolated little offices somewhere and they're not talking to the vibe of the community. And so we want to be able to share the vibe of the community. We were just talking about that. Like we need to talk to the Department of Transportation before you decide to take all the cars off the street and put a 4-lane road down your main street. That's not going to work, or we got to come up with a better plan. So
I think that's why I talked about these projections for population growth. Because when you hear these from Dane County, I'm like, where the heck are all these people gonna come from? you know, it's not just Epic, and we're not really an Epic community. Except we have Epic people here who live in houses who've been at Epic for a long time now and survived it. You know, those initial years, now have planted themselves here, but we're not like Madison where the Epic, I call them the Epic kids, move in and out of the apartments. I don't think we ever will be. We're kind of too far away from Verona too, and we don't have the downtown where they like to hang out and socialize. You know, we want stuff to do here for the people who live here. But you need more population. I mean, even the businesses, we're not that big. That's why we have a 20,000 square foot Aldi.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
As opposed to a
We're
Woodman's.
real estate. We're
Yeah.
not that big.
Yeah.
I'll ask you guys' opinion. I have never felt of us being an Epic community, but I always thought there are a lot of people that work at American Family, or years ago when Oscar Mayer was in business, so we were a big Oscar Mayer and American Family
Yeah.
location.
Kind of a
That
north
seems-
side
Yeah,
business.
exactly. That's
And downtown, got a lot of downtown.
Sun Prairie mentioned that their growth was originally American family driven, all their multifamily, but now they see it being mostly Epic. And the reason they see it mostly Epic is the land values are less, the rents could be low, and it was a shorter drive to the airport for the Warriors to go out and do their weekly hits and come back. And that's what really propelled
Oh,
Sun
that's
Prairie
interesting.
on that eastern flank.
That's interesting.
We are also nice and close to the airport. We do have
Right.
actually,
Right.
yeah, quite a few people that are in the Air Force Reserve that are here.
Mhm.
Um,
One thing I heard earlier is I think we want to be multi-generational.
Yeah.
You know, we want the community, people to be able to be born here and die here if you want to. What's interesting is my kids who are in their thirties were raised here and they've left. But their friends are wanting, they're married now, they maybe have a child, they're coming back here. And, which is great that they want to come back and
Yeah.
live here.
Absolutely.
I think that's a testament of what they experienced and what they're seeing elsewhere.
Yeah,
And now we're
they,
realizing that.
they loved growing up here.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they want their family to have that.
Everybody's got to live somewhere, and this,
They do.
yeah, you could do worse.
I have one odd thing I'd want to throw out because one of the things I've noticed in Waunakee is in other communities, that communities that look beautiful tend to have trees planted in the terraces up and down the street versus you could have them in your yard too. But I mean, when you go down a street and there are trees in the terrace, it frames the hard, ugly roads that we have to have for transportation. And we have a lot of communities that have neighborhoods that have them, and we have neighborhoods that don't. And I would love to see us be that tree lined community as we continue to grow, because I do think it adds unbelievable beauty to this community.
Yeah, we just had to take a couple of streets worth of trees out to replace the utilities. too, so, Yeah.
Well, there went that idea. Next. Okay. Okay. Well, my final slide here. We don't even have to dig into this now, but what it really does is I think some of my questions tonight and even some of your really fleshed ideas really show the importance of digging deeper, not just one extra question, not just two extra questions, but really three extra questions. I want a nice downtown. Well, what does that mean? It means more restaurants. Well, aren't there already a dozen down there? Well, they're not the right kind. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Or I want our village to look better. Well, what's wrong with it? Not enough trees. Well, everywhere? Well, it's along streets. I want us to have this. So we're getting somewhere. And once you dig to that, once you peel that third layer off the onion, then you find an action that you can do. And, it's like, well, what does making it better for kids mean to you? What is it making, my kids don't feel safe riding a bike. I get it. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about where. Let's talk about what would make them feel safer. And now it takes this generalized concern into something more actionable. So that's something we'll be doing. How will we know if we actually did this? So these are the questions we're going to be asking, because just getting sort of open-ended, oh, there's nothing to do here. Well, what does having something to do mean to you? Well, somewhere to hang out. Okay, you guys hang out at home. Why not just do that? Because, okay, now we're getting somewhere. These are the what kind of open spaces, what kind of places actually resonate, not just with the teenagers, but also with families with kids. Like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And another question to it that I really like asking is, what do you always leave town to do? And so people will say, oh my God, we love the Children's Museum. or, or XYZ. So that's another good question to ask, well, what are you always going to Madison for? And then, so you can start to understand what we'll find out what the actual market gaps are. That's data crunching. But to find out what people perceive as the gaps are in Waunakee, that can really talk about how people perceive the culture here and the local character. So this is just something that we'll be asking as we go through this. So kind of before I go to next steps, I want to give my team here a chance to ask questions. Derek, Fran, is there anything you want to hit on before we leave with this team?
Okay, good. Yeah, so I'm a transportation planner. I began my career here in many, many years, 35 years ago at Dane County Regional Planning Commission. There was talk about the congestion in the north part of Dane County back then, ring corridors, other things like that. Accessibility is true. Regional traffic, another position I had before this one was to work on Highway 19 with WISDOT, and I'm very familiar with the parking, the needs for, regional traffic, the heavy truck vehicles coming through town. So a lot of what you said tonight really resonates with what I've been working on for a long time.
I feel like I heard a lot of interesting points and concerns about housing. I know it's going to be a big topic of conversation throughout this whole plan. So interested to get that conversation started and kind of hear some of the concerns. It's good to hear people that are coming back in their 20s and 30s. I think we want to talk more about how do you keep them here throughout? Do we have the right types of housing? I guess one thing that we haven't talked a lot about, you kind of touched on it, is this balance of economic development with residential. Just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, ideally what that mix would look like. What types of jobs are you looking for? Are there types of industries that you'd like to have here? I think you don't want warehouse and distribution. We're seeing that slow down a little bit after a big boom coming out of COVID, but maybe talk a little bit more about aspirations on that front.
Right. Kind of places. So I think living wage jobs, which everybody wants, right? Our challenge right now goes back to available land to a certain extent, that 80-20 split, for residential, non-residential tax base, we have long recognized as an issue. We have a very, finite amount of land available in our industrial park and no ability to expand right now. So that is one of our primary obstacles. Redevelopment is always a possibility, but most of our businesses and our buildings are, the vast majority are occupied and doing well. So we would hope not to see those businesses disappear. Yeah. Thoughts, you guys?
Well, it's nice to have jobs where people can live here and get to their jobs and not have to commute outside the community or inside the community, although I know that's going to have to happen because transportation's a problem for some people. And I wouldn't want to see a lot of manufacturing that created environmental issues.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see, I guess, probably a balance of maybe sustainable technology jobs. Pair that up probably because we've got good infrastructure, the ability for a lot of IT people to work from home where we don't need to actually expand our business park or anything else. We just need to make sure that all of that infrastructure is there and is solid and reliable. So.
Brian or Mike? Chris?
Well, I have maybe a bigger picture than what you're referring to. So the demographic 25 to 35-year-olds, I think they have the most difficult task in front of them of any group right now because of the cost of education. Higher education is they come out with significant debt that they've got to pay back. Then they go and maybe get married. And when they get married, they may take on another spouse that has that significant debt from schooling. And then you go from that to, we're going to have a child and your childcare costs are
Astronomical.
astronomically higher. And I didn't even get to housing, which they're gonna look at an apartment at that point because they can't get the downstroke made to get to the house, more than likely. And I'm not even getting in cars, utility costs and all the other things that are there. So I think that demographic is one that if we could figure out something to help, that would be an amazing thing.
Stressing me out, Chris.
Are you in that demographic?
Potentially, I may or may not be. But. My question, you guys are in a really unique position to where, yes, it's a kind of a rural community, but clearly not, but it's you've got a decent population. And I know that that just comes with its own challenges in itself. So I kind of want to know, just before we really get into public engagement, like from your perspective, what are the general attitudes of the community on change, on things like renewable energy, just different things that, like on the sustainability end, developments that will help sustain this community into the future? Or is there this general attitude of like, change nothing, we don't want any new development, nothing like that, keep it rural, keep it green, just general notes, I guess.
Little of column A, little of column B.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's
It's a good blend.
there's a mix of perspectives.
Okay.
And I don't want to lose that.
Sure. Yeah.
How we support both of those, I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that's where we'll dig in and get to.
Okay. Yeah.
There's NIMBYs
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Always.
and there's others that would say, let's grow, let's go. What are we waiting for? And as to Joe said, people have the perception that we're way out in the middle of nowhere. Waunakee's not way out in the middle of nowhere. We're 10 minutes away from pretty much everything that's bigger city.
Mhm.
We just have a lake in the way, kind of. And that's not a bad thing
Yeah.
for any of us. So that's my comments on that.
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
curious to know, and I don't know if we can identify it through this process or not, but like what kind of business can we attract here, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, we have some service industry, probably more service than actual industrial. I mean, we've got a few stakeholders here that are well ingrained in that, but you know, is there some other businesses, you know, and I'm not saying this is it, but you know, you talked about like Apple or, you know, these, you know, not that we want Apple building out here, but who knows, right? Something, you know, some high tech, you know, is there opportunity for something like that that will bring, you know, you know, good paying jobs to the area that, isn't transitory. It's just, you know, it's gonna stay here and maintain and
Mhm.
grow or whatever, right? I don't know what those are, but you know, something like that, how do we attract that? And I know land is an issue, right? But, there's ways around that too, so.
Yeah, we did have a company that's, is their business finished? The Welch's business? Yet? We have a life science, newcomer. Are they open? Yeah. We did have a life science firm that located from Middleton out here because they didn't have lab space in Madison, and that's just such a regional industry, and they are just crazy short of lab space. So if I was to say if there is an industry we could pursue, not that we want to limit it to one life science industry, they're relatively high value buildings, they're short supply. If one company would go under, there's certainly other takers for that space in the region. And it really does draw on kind of the intellectual capital of the university in the Madison area. They, amongst other reasons, located here because their employees didn't want to drive into Middleton. And we were, you know, how we like, I'll say we live here in part because it's easy to get to all sides. Well, it's easy for all sides to get to us too. So those kind of professional, high draw, we need to have people commuting in businesses might be kind of a space to look at. And what kind of buildings, what kind of expensive?
Do you have I guess,
Yeah.
to that point, and I'll come back to it in a second, do you have an active or a passive approach to going out and finding the businesses that you want? Because I could tell you there's a lot of businesses across America that would love to be in the Madison market because they're down in Austin, Texas, and they're down in Nashville, and they're going where places are young and there's energy and there's an academic world that can foster that, good quality of life, reasonable housing costs, good environment to enjoy. you have all those things except for cold. But it's really, really hot down in Austin, and everybody from California is living in Austin, and every major tech company moved to Austin because the state has good financial straits. You know, you could become, not that you want to, and not that Madison wants to, but Madison is on that precipice of making that radical leap into another world because of what it is, and it could do it really, really easy. On the other hand, I think that people are a little worried about that character. At least that's the sense I get. So you could take a very active approach as a community and say, we want that, and we're going to go out and find those people to be, and we're going to broadcast what we are and where we want them to be here. Or you could say, no, they'll come and find us.
That's great. Well, we are scaling up our staff, so, yeah, we could
Takes work.
become that, but I would say, for the most part, over the last 10 to 15 years, people have come to us. I'm looking at you, Chris, as former president, to, yeah.
I'm not in that role anymore.
I know. I know.
You are.
So, yeah.
I mean, I would let Todd speak to this because
Yeah.
Todd's been in charge of this for some time.
Passive.
Passive.
Passive, but the regional pursuit of development in the area is taken on regionally through Madison Regional Economic Partnership, MadRep it's called. And, you know, we engage appropriately with that group. I think to the point we've discussed already that there are RFPs that come across our desks on a monthly basis from MadRep that frankly, we have no land product that enables us to participate. And that is a routine outcome for the 25 plus acre proposals. Like I said, we get about one a month. And that they filter through MadRep to us generally, sometimes the state, but mostly MadRep.
So I assume, Todd, you've talked to them about the Lone Eagles program, that's been a big thing in Waunakee. Yes.
I don't know if we've talked about that what Chris is talking about is so many professionals who work out of the home. And that is a large population. And very, very successful ones. Some incredibly creative, innovative, high-end thinkers.
Neat. Cool.
I feel like that could kind of be our niche where, you know, ideally if we had the space for I'll call it manufacturing, but it's not the heavy industrial manufacturing like you traditionally think of. It's you know, more tech driven. And when you look at we've got UW-Madison right down the road, a huge source of potential people to do this. And they'd be the kind of people that potentially could afford to live in Waunakee. You know, you're not trying to do entry level pay on those positions. These are more higher educated people that, you know, are figuring out how to, whether it's life sciences or it's robotics or it's AI or some of that stuff, they're designing, they're creating, they're manufacturing, if you will, but it's not, you know, twisting nuts on bolts. This is like high tech stuff that would fit well and maybe doesn't require the space that we don't necessarily have. High income types of people that you get out of the university in a variety of fields. I think we would be a good community to fit those people, you know, and if it's Lone Eagles or it's relatively small factories,
Sure.
you know, where they're assembling something or putting together some robot or whatever it might be, you know, very different than what you think of as traditional foundries and
Oh, yeah.
else, you know.
Yeah. Sort of tech incubator spaces.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Todd, can you share what, you said Swiss wrap? What was it called? Where you get
MadRep.
MadRep? What size parcels are they looking for?
Typically, it's 50 to 200 acres is what we see in RFP calls for.
And they cover like 5 counties or 7 counties? I mean, it's huge. They
Yeah,
cover
all the way
huge-
down to all the way down to Platteville, I think.
It's 6 or 7 counties.
It's big, yeah.
Rock County is included, I think.
So that's one business
Maybe
that's that size. 50 to
Pardon?
100 acres for a business.
One.
And what's our Kilkenny Kilkenny West size? How many acres is that? 180. So it's like an entire subdivision for one company.
Many of you, I don't know if any of you
For
were
development.
around, but I do remember when Epic did their RFP and we got it in Waunakee. And we couldn't even, they were only looking for. It was
They wanted to call it that.
But we couldn't even accommodate, and it would be really bad if they were here because our traffic system.
They wanted it for the airport, because it was 10 minutes to the airport.
Right.
Mm.
But, I mean, I think you have to be realistic as to what you can attract. I don't see a lot of life sciences here because of the university, and they like to be the University Research Park. And what the city university has invested into that and the buildings that they're building there and stuff. I don't know how we could compete against that.
I'll just point out, we could, if we get them at their infantile stages that they wanted to relocate out to Waunakee.
Yeah.
Right. From, because
Right.
that's what the business park,
Immature
the science
stage,
park was
yeah.
designed for, was
Right.
those small businesses to start. So we could be a great landing spot for them.
But you gotta have somebody built, the university built the building and is basically subsidizing it before people come in.
My
do that
experience
here.
in my 15 years here has been the majority of business lands that we've accomplished has had very little to do with their area of expertise or what product they're making. It's had everything to do with our location and the proximity to their existing labor force. Or sometimes the fact that we had sort of the right parcel in the right place at the right time. I haven't seen anything that's been uniquely strategic towards a particular sector. It's been more logical about location, proximity, and people.
That's what I'd go for. I wouldn't go for type of business necessarily or type of industry as much as type of business, what they're looking for. Is it somebody that looks for a space that's, 5 acres and not 200? And for whatever reason, they're on a smaller parcel and, I just think some of the tech and whatever else is gonna be coming out, they aren't driven by huge boxes where they got huge cranes and whatever else going on and massive warehouses. That if we can find those types of businesses regardless of industry.
There's another interesting thing that's happened is as we've done a really amazing job with a single family housing stock that's attracted professionals and frankly company executives that what do you call it, A-list decision makers from those companies. They found Waunakee as a place to live, and those folks have found reason to want to bring their business or relocate their business closer to where they live. I can probably rattle off 5 or 6 circumstances, again, in the past 15 years, where the key decision maker, because they live in Waunakee, chose to get their business here. I don't call it a matter of convenience, or they fall in love with a village for whatever reason, and that kind of trickled into their business decision.
So one of the items that's come up and it plays on that and what you just said is, and we talked about it here already tonight, is we can get anywhere, right? You can get you can get to the airport, you can get to east, west, downtown, whatever. You can get anywhere you want from here, right? Pretty easily. There's some community that probably already has this slogan, but we can get anywhere, right? But, how do we, that's something we play off a little bit because that's where how do you spurn some of that commercial and industrial type development, right? Because you can get anywhere, right? 5 minutes from the interstate, 10 minutes to the airport.
A lot of this flies around what you're saying, Todd, is the schools and the quality of our schools here to bring their families here. That's a big, big deal.
That is the biggest deal.
All right.
Well, why don't we talk about where we go from here? Wonderful conversation. I'm going to work with you as a steering committee to come up with some final ideas for the public participation plan. We can keep it fairly high level, but I just want to make sure we're kind of on the same page. And then finalize that with Lauren, and I believe we'll bring it to the commission for approval. And then we will, and some of this will be somewhat concurrent. We want to meet with the focus groups and we don't want to put this off too long. Summers are busy. We'll be lucky to pull something together in June. But typically what we'll do, depending on the number of them, let's say there are 6, it's possible we can schedule them all in one day. And we might do them here, or there might be another venue like a library. Some people can kind of loosen up if they're not in the government building. So we'll work on that. And if it turns out that we have truly 7 or 8 groups, it might work out better to space it out over 2 days, but it would be ideal. given that, we're driving from a little, not that far away, but still. We'll pull those together. And then we'll be talking to you about some other engagement activities. If there are some events where it might work well to set up a booth and just have a poster about the Waunakee 2040 plan, key to the future. We want your participation and some narrative, and then a QR code to take the survey on a phone. So that's something we'll work on. Otherwise, there might be engagement activities, one or two of them throughout the summer, where it works well for a couple of us to come up from the Lakota group to actually be there and engage with people. And then where I also mentioned the community conversations. So this is probably part of public participation. We'll be back up. This might be, we'll, do a lot of analysis on our own, but to really get out here and to really make a field work visit worth it. It helps so much to have had conversations to find out what's important to people and really so what some of the key draws are. So we'll be conducting field work throughout throughout these activities as we're up here. And as I mentioned, phase one really concludes with the State of the Village report. And so that'll probably be actually our next formal meeting, I think, as a group brought together. And so just have that in the back of your mind, but we'll be in touch plenty in the near term. And that will be the formal steering committee too. So that gives you an idea of where we're going to go from here. Thank you. Hey, look, it's Todd's key.
Yeah.
Oh, it's part of it. It's the teeth. It's the teeth. I sent you a picture of my drawing.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right. So yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. That concludes my
Thank
comments.
you so much. What a great discussion. All right. Waunakee Westport Joint Plan Commission update.
We are meeting this month. We have two items on the agenda. One is the 3-lot CSM. The other one is the site plan for Aldi.
No, we're just talking. Sorry. It's
Oh, no, that's
tomorrow.
fine. It's tomorrow. Chris, you are not on joint plan.
I'm not.
You're not.
Correct.
So,
All right.
That's what I was confirming.
Yeah. First month of the new season. So, yeah. All right. That sounds great. Yeah. All
I
right.
am now.
Who do we all have on?
we have Brian and Sue and a vacant spot.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I think the vacancy relates to, Kristen, you've not nailed
Not
down
appointed anymore,
the
yeah.
vacancy on the plan commission itself, which would be a citizen member, also eligible for the joint plan commission appointment.
I have an offer out, but not an answer yet. So,
Right.
yeah. All right. With that, thank you for the discussion today. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah. Thank you for coming, everyone in the audience. We have one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. We are done.
You want to think about that for